up. Okay, today we are going to camp day 7. Today we're going to go over trend. What is our trend? How do we identify it? Okay, we're going to go over 2 ways to identify trend. First thing is simple, easy, how we use kill shot to identify trend. Very easy, very simple. We're going to show you guys, that higher time frame and how we identify trend. Okay, then we're going to go over some structure. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how the structure of the charts can help us to identify trend. Even potential maybe trend reversals earlier and those types of things when you start to see a couple of things in some structure and how it indicates, those types of reversals. And we can talk a little bit, obviously there's some people who trade with us have been doing things like smart money concepts and some of these, like CT and some of these other things that really use, volume left behind or some structure, change of structure, change of character, breaking highs and lows and those types of things. So what we're going to do is, first things first, is we're going to go over the simplicity of how we identify trend. Okay, and it's as simple as using our pen. Okay, so we have our nice beautiful panel up here. It literally says trend US 30. You can use this on any chart you want. Okay, on any chart you see fit, right? Any pair you want, you can see. We can go, all the way over to Euro USD, and I focus on some of the indices because of the volume level, because they move a little bit faster. But you can use this on on anything, USD JPY, whatever that looks like, right, to help you with your trend movements. Okay, as you can see, down, longer term. So very simple. What Killshot does is it uses EMA, so it uses averages, right? It uses averages, and as you can see, this thing was kind of fighting it out, and there's actually some structure here. So we'll talk about how that structure can help you identify, right, the shift in the chart. So first things first, the cross of the EMAs, as you can see here, coming out of London, right? There was a nice little push up. London dropped out as London was kind of finishing, and then pushed all the way back up to this 238. And this is why we use the 238 and why it's something we have on the chart, which we're going to go over here next week. And you can see how important the 238 is to trading and strategy, right? Because it comes back to these averages, right into this. It literally on the 15 wicked to that, wicked to it again, and is now reversed and come back down, which if structure continues, I would expect this to start to push back up, but really like to see it get back above this 238 to see some nice movement. Okay, so first things first, you can see these EMAs have crossed each other, and as you can see, these EMAs are actually quite flat when these two started to cross, indicating that there was no separation after it. So the trend really wasn't that strong. Okay, so very, very easily when you come onto the chart, you want to look at these time frames. Okay, and how we use these time frames and use these bigger time frames. And so the first thing is, if we're going to trade on the 1 minute chart, we want to see what the chart's doing on the 15. Right? So what this does is when we identify a little bit of longer term trend, it's going to help us understand the direction of the market. Now, the reason we want to understand the direction of the market is that we want to scalp with that direction of the market, because that increases our probability of the chart wanting to go our direction, right? It's going to increase the probability that if we're trying to scalp, that our scalps are going to go the right way, okay? That's what this trend is used for. It is to increase probability. Now, we can talk about some of it's not going to be perfect, right? Sometimes that 25 pip stop isn't going to survive, right? It's not ever going to be perfect. But what we do for trading on the 1 minute, we want to see what this chart's doing on the 15, okay? And that's going to give us a better idea on the 15 of what direction this chart's going. Now, this chart's kind of in the middle of direction. It's had a really nice push up out of here, out of London, but it's also tapped off that 238. And when we get to structure, we'll talk about kind of the structure that's setting itself, okay? Now, what we want to identify is that it's on an uptrend in this chart, which means that when we turn into a smaller time frame, we want to find our way up, which at this point, this is coming downwards, right? So So the best thing for us would see this thing get back above this 238, shift back into an uptrend, right? And see that nice blue triangle like this one over here. This is essentially in the same position if we're looking at the structure of this chart, right? It pushed away, right? Pushed up and away, broke through a bunch of structure, came all the way back, broke through the 238, bounced around a little bit, held, broke back up through the 238, and switched into this buy triangle, and then pushed away. Right now it's in its reset, right? It's come all the way down, it's pulled back. On the one, it looks like a lot, but it's not really, right? It's really only about 40 pips or so back to the top. We'd be looking for this thing to hold its space, right? Like it did here, hold its space, and then push back up out of it, okay? Which is, when we get over the structure, you'll be able to kind of see how that structure plays. Okay, but first things first, if we're trading on the 1, we want to see what this thing's doing on the 15. Okay? If we're trading on the 5, we want to see what this is doing on the 30. Now, we're going to go take a look at this 30, and you can see this thing is still sitting down here in the bottom of it, filling up this displacement. Right? And just sitting on this 238. It looks like this is going to hold and eventually push back up, but it is sort of struggling to move its way back up. And we have lots of news this morning, so let's be patient with news this morning. But you can see that this thing on the 30 is holding here, and this looks like it's about to shift, actually, if we get close into it, right? These EMAs are sitting right on top of each other, so it actually looks like the 30 is getting ready to shift too. And we're above the 238, and it's pulled back to it, so more than likely this is going to want to push back up. Okay, as it's finally broken up, come right back to some of this structure, pull back, starting to push its way up. Okay, so let's go over the secondary piece of kind of the range. So if you're on the 5, we want to see what the 30 is doing. Now the 30 says it's down, but you can see these EMAs are getting really close to switching, so potentially looking to head up as well, and then you'll be pretty much everything will be blue. Okay. You just got to reach out to me on Instagram, my man, and I can give you some access, okay? It should be on GFood here soon, but they're still finishing up on the app. So some of the programmers have been a bit busy, okay? Okay, so everything is looking up to me. Even on the 30. I know that this still says down, but you can see these EMAs are really close. So we can shift over to the 1. But what we want to talk about a little bit now, I'm just going to go to 5 minutes to talk about the structure. Just because it's going to show us a little bit of some of the structure that is being built. And this is how we use, right? This is how we use, when we look at these 5-minute signals. I know I got lots of people who test this thing. But if you stay in good trade, good volume time, you use some pips in some of these, right? This is a beauty, but that was not good volume time. And as you can see, this thing pulled all the way back in the 5 and is now starting to try to push its way back up. Okay, so we want to talk about a little bit about structure. And this is only thing we're really going to talk about here are higher highs, higher lows, right? Lower highs, those types of things that are going to show us how the structure wants to change. Okay, so you have a zone like this, right? We'll talk about this downtrend. You have a zone like this where the chart is kind of just sitting in its zone, right? Holding it. Okay, now what you want to see here, and you can see there's a nice little volume grab for anybody who's playing those zones, right? This thing pushed back up, grabbed that volume, and then continued on this downtrend. So what we'd be looking for so that we can see some structure shift, right? If we're looking to see if this thing wants to confirm that this wants to be a downtrend, we want to see structure, right? That's going to mean two things, right? That's going to mean that first, if we're looking to see if this thing wants to head down, first we want to see it break structure on the way down, right, to here. This is going to create, and I'm just going to put the whole thing on here, okay? Okay, we're just going to talk about this whole trend, the way down, and all the things it does. Okay, so this is structure of a downtrend, right? And it's going to build things like, right? It's going to do things like, you can see it breaks this previous low. And you can see there's a support area there, right? You can see support and support. So it's going to break this support. And then what does it do? It needs to pull in more volume before it can head on its trend. This movement right here is why we don't trade breakouts. Right? This shift here is a breakout, immediately reverse to our stop loss, and then onto the direction we wanted it to go in the first place. Right? So this is why we don't trade right at that breakout. That signal came right at that breakout. If we would have just been patient, even just a little pullback back to that 238 would have been a much better entry. Okay, but the first thing we want to talk about here is this lower low. Right? It creates what we call a lower low. Okay, and that is going to indicate that your structure wants to start to shift. Okay, and then you can see as it broke this support, this was the low. Right? This creates a lower low, pulls back up into this volume. Okay, and then what does it do? It breaks structure again. So the low that it created, the chart comes and breaks that low again, right? And creates another one. Okay, so it does two things here to help you with your structure. First thing it does is it breaks this level, creates a lower low. Then it pulls back up into this space, and what does it create here? Right, creates a lower high. That's not how you spell that. There you go. Okay, it creates a lower high, which this is now telling you that the structure is telling you that it wants to start to go down. Right, and as you can see, it continues. Right, it continues to bring that structure down. Right, so the first thing it does, it creates a lower low, creates a lower high, then breaks structure again. Right, so right here, breaks structure again. Breaks that previous lower low it created. Then comes all the way here, puts on the brakes. What does it create? Creates here, another lower low, then creates another lower high, then breaks that structure. Now, one thing here is we can look at this level, okay, is this structure here, this didn't break structure on the way back up. So this is something that I watch for if I'm ever looking for reversals, right? If I'm thinking, okay, well, this maybe even the longer term trend still could have been up at this point, right? So you can see it did break this low and pull back up here, but what didn't it break? Now, it might not have created a lower high, but this previous high here didn't get broken. So if this thing would have shifted here and broken above here, right? We could have seen a shift in structure, right? Potentially this could have headed back up, right? And the 50's right there too, as well, right? You can see there's a high, the 50 right there. You're like, okay, pretty good chance it comes to this and bounces and then continues on structure. If it breaks here and gets back above that, now we have a changed character, because this character is what's telling you, and its character that it's creating, the lower lows and lower highs are creating the character of a downtrend. And when it breaks this, if it would have broke this high and got back above it, it would have changed the character, because it would have broken the previous high, which means the buyers are starting to push back. Okay, does that make sense to everybody on the structure part? So we're looking for, if we're looking, right, we're on a downtrend, we see this thing break this low, we're like, okay, we want to find our opportunity to head down with this. And after it creates that lower high and then breaks this structure, like, okay, now this downtrend wants to continue, where's my opportunity to join it? Not so we can look for the pullbacks. We will be doing pullbacks first day next week, so you guys will learn the PB&J, because we had a couple of the basic stuff to get through this week. Okay, so that structure where it's creating lower lows and lower highs, where it's continuing, right? There's just that little pullback. These are those things we talked about when we talk about those averages, where the chart must pull back to these areas to grab more volume to continue on its direction. Okay, now we'll just shift over here, and this literally changes the character and goes into an early uptrend. Okay? Right? Goes into this uptrend. You can see yesterday, this thing holding space, right? Holding space, created a little lower low here, and then held. And now what you want to see is the opposite. Right? This thing starts to tell me, and while it is very counter, and I'm probably not going to jump into it, but this push to here pulls back. What does it create? Right? Pushes back here. Look where it stops. Previous resistance line. Comes up here to where there was volume sitting, hits it, pulls back, up to this break of this 238, pulls back, and then up we go. And now, what is it in? What does it look like now? If this structure was to continue, where would it go? Right? If this structure was to continue. As you can see, right? So if we're watching this, if we're watching these things, instead of creating lower lows, which means flashing up and then breaking structure backward, back down, it's actually changing the structure, right? So this push to the top and this push to here, and this creates a higher low, right? And after this was created, this would have been your high. This broke and created a higher high, right? And came right back to this level, pulled back again, created another higher low, right? So you can see this structure start to shift. And this is how you can see this structure of this chart start to shift. And then you can start to look and be like, the structure is telling me that this wants to go up, right? And look at what it's doing right now. This came back down, created another higher low, right? And then you can see in here, this is creating higher highs, right? You start to see this previous structure break higher, right? So it creates a higher high right here. Right? And once you start to identify these things, and this is, we're going to talk a little bit more about this stuff, and you'll see the structure as we move forward. But once you start to see the structure, it's going to help you with some of these moments. Okay? Some of these moments like this, look at this triangle, red triangle. Right? Same with this one. You're like, if this wants to continue up, this is where it's going to create a higher low. Right there. This is going to continue up. This is where it wants to create a higher low. And look, if you're looking at the structure, look at how you can avoid these signals. Right? If this signal comes and then it wants to break this structure and start to head back down, now we can get into this thing. But if you look at it, right? If you look at it through, you just kind of do a little bit of a bird's eye. Yeah, we're looking at structure on the 5 because it's easier to see. Okay? Just to go over for the training. Not necessarily anything else. We can see the same thing on the 1, but just because I already identified this before we got on the call, I knew it was an easy place to go over this. Okay? So you can see higher low, higher low, higher low, just barely, right? Higher low, but you can see this triangle. If you're looking at the structure, green star, structure, previous structure right there, you just want to see it just break below it slightly. Then you have a few pips at least, but the signal coming right at that level, this is going to be a bounce level. When you start to identify that structure, it's going to help you, get into these positions or avoid some of these positions that might just not be in the best structure. Right? Comes up, breaks at 238, you wait the pullback, comes back to here, re-breaks that 238, bam, 70 pips. Right? And as you can see, higher low, higher low, higher low, right? Breaks the structure, higher high, pulls back for more money, creates another higher high, pulls back, right? And now we want to see if it wants to continue this structure and create another higher high. Okay? And that's how, if you're just patient and you see how this structure starts to shift, and you can see in this shorter time frame, even though this had a bottom and at this point it would have been a downtrend, you can see the structure. Okay? Stars are tomorrow. Okay, you can see the structure. Is there any guidance how far left we should look to get an idea of structure? Well, you can identify how long the structure's been going, right? You can see this actual downtrend kept this structure all the way till here, till it shifted. Okay. We'll go over the stars tomorrow. The green stars is a reversal level. Our stars are tomorrow. And there's not really how far left. Just look left. That's all. It doesn't have to be a certain distance. But just look left, and you can see you had this big structure, and you can see this continued actually, right? Broke that high slightly, but pulled down, kept creating, right, lower highs all the way down here till the structure started to shift. Now you're like, okay, the structure's actually starting to shift now, and now it looks like it wants to go up. Okay? You can look at that and just see, right, this structure continued all the way down, and then it's put on the brakes, created a couple double highs, created a double top here. You can see, right, lower high, lower highs, then structure just slightly shifts. This little higher low is, for me, is like, okay, let's see what it's going to do here. Comes all the way, taps it, pulls back, creates another higher low, breaks the 238, pulls back again, and up we go. Right, this little shift here for me is like, okay, this thing might want to start to shift in structure. So I want to see if it's going to pull back up here and create another higher low. And for me, I keep seeing these higher lows. I'm like, oh, another higher low, oh, another higher low. Let's look to see where this thing wants to break upwards. Okay? We're getting a little close to some news here this morning, so I think we might get a little bit of a pullback, or it might hold in this space. Okay, so that's how we can identify structure. It's very simple, the simple parts of some of this structure. Okay? I am going to zoom out a bit here, erase all this stuff, and we're going to identify some charts. Ba-bum-ba-bum-bum. Oh man, Trading View some days. Just practice training your eye to see that structure, right? You're like, I'm not quite ready for a buy yet. I see the 238 up here. I'm not quite ready. It's starting to create some, right, some higher lows. I'm like, this thing has a pretty good chance of wanting to head up. Okay? And then we'll see. And they're like, okay, well, if that structure is starting to shift, okay, the trend has just shifted 15 minutes up. Okay, well, let's see if on the one, it wants to break. They should be the same. If you're going to take a signal, of course, Brenda. If you're going to take it, you want to take a buy here because the 15-minute is up on the one. And the 30 is about to shift up as well. I don't know when the news is coming out. I know we have some, a little bit here in an orange folder. Just check quick. Let me check my news. We got some orange folders coming right now. Another little orange folder at 7. And then we got consumer confidence at 8. Okay. And I am so high. So we want to wait this news out, see if this news is going to give a little bit of volatility, maybe drop this thing back down here, and then see if this wants to head back up. But you can see this thing's tried to head up a couple times. 1, 2, 3. Actually created a little lower low. So this is probably going to drop down here again a little bit before it wants to start to head up. And it's created a little zone here, so we're going to be quite patient with this, okay? Okay. Well, it's not breaking structure either direction. So the one thing is, you can see this nice structure on the one, right? This had a little double bottom, had a little, or we can identify this on the one too. I don't think it's showing much different, but you can see 1, 2, double bottom, right? Comes back to the top, pulls back, creates what right here? You just draw it out, right? Creates a little double bottom here, pushes to the 238, which it's already bounced off of once, creates a higher low, breaks the 238, pulls back, creates a higher low, little breakout there, creates a higher low, breakout, another higher low, right? You can see this thing, the structure, and it's just like higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. Look at them all along the way, right? This is where the pullbacks will come into effect. Right? So that is a nice uptrend structure, right? Look at had a double bottom here, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, as it just keeps pushing up. Okay, now one thing you can see here, and if you want to be patient with this, okay, that created that structure. Now it pulls all the way back into this space, and what does it do? It created a little bit of a lower low here, but look, 1, 2, 3, it's actually not really changing in character, right? This is, your structure is not really telling you anything. Yes, my trend is up, it's above the 238, there's going to be a signal coming soon, and all that is telling me up, but the structure, not so much. So what we want to do, if we're going to wait to see if this thing's actually going to change some structure and head back up, we want to see it break this little level. Right? This is when we'd be patient with it. We wouldn't just press the button right here because there's a heavy structure level that it would need to break. So if we're waiting to go up, we want to see it break that structure, then pull back into it, and then head up. Right now, this is not really telling me anything. I had a little double bottom here. It did actually break that lower, hit the top 1, 2, 3. It's about to hit it for the 4th time and head back down. So this is probably going to reset. For me, this is probably going to reset a little bit more. Okay? Because you can see the structure isn't shifting. It's creating this support line that's right here and right there has tapped 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So this is probably going to pull back some more, and it actually might start to continue structure downwards. I'm still looking to go up with this. We gotta let the news shake out a little bit. Okay. So let's see if this thing wants to come, break a little bit below it, and then see if it's got to come back up to this 238 and start to shift structure the other direction. Okay. That's what I'd be looking for in US 30. I want to see it get back up and follow that 15-minute trend. I want to see if it's gonna hold this 30, is gonna hold the top of its 238. Right? As you can see, it's just kind of been holding in this zone here today. And yesterday, it really hasn't moved a ton. Right? As you can see, it came right back up to the top of that was on Monday, and then it dropped down. I mean, man, barely 100 pips, pushed all the way back to the top, and it's now in here. So we want to see this. There's that break below, and this thing could just go and take off, but we need to see the structure start to shift and head back up on trend. Okay, but I'm going to take that off until this thing figures itself out. So, but that's what I'd be waiting for, right? Because right now, it's going counter. Our trend is up still, and this thing is heading very counter right now. Okay? All right. Well, our magic arrow yesterday eventually played out. Right, it took a little while. It didn't play out till over here, but I left her open. Broke that 238. Nice little push back up there. It's always up. It's going to be part of the boot camp, man. It'll always be in there. All right, our trend is up. Big old pullback here as well. There's a nice little level at the top of NAS right there, right where that 50 is. Okay. It's going into my course, so there'll be a sorry guys. There'll be a 30-day sort of it'll be a 30-day boot camp course for anybody who gets started. Right? Anybody who gets started, wants to use Killshot, wants to trade with us, there'll be a 30-day boot camp for them to get started with. All right, still a heavy uptrend, lots of separation. This thing coming back into this space. So let's go. It'll be just a nice place to start. Peeps, you want to come, they want to bring in here. Okay, so let's see how this little news shakes out and see if this wants to continue down. But this could be a nice little grab using the news for some grab and volume, and then this start to push back up. So enough reward here though. 17. There's not. Take a look at this again. There's a reward over there. Not answer. This wants to continue down a little bit here. But we will see if this thing can push and get back above, because DXY is actually dropping slightly. Okay, so I'm going to be patient on both of these. This might just come flying back up here on trend. We'll see what it does at this 238. But there isn't a ton of pips here. Okay, so yes, there might be a nice entry here. It can get back above some of this structure.
Wow.
Might be a nice entry as it breaks above some of this stuff. But just remember our risk reward, 397. There's only 20 pips there. Let's see how fast, man. US 3 is doing the same thing. I shouldn't have taken my magic arrow off. Let's see if this thing can break above this. So if this thing pushes back above the 238 and breaks above this level, we want to see it just pull back one more time to make sure that this just isn't a grab before it heads down. See it pull back one more time and then head up. Okay? And that'll follow structure. Okay? I saw somewhere that you trade Monday. Well, that's when I do my calls. Do you ever trade after market open when you feel the volume is not? I don't know what that means. I have my trade, the times that I trade are my good volume times. I'm here trading if I haven't hit my goal yet. I'll trade after open till 9 o'clock. My favorite time to trade is, and we're going to go over trade times. That's next week as well. But my favorite time to trade is about 11 MST to 12:30, 1 o'clock MST, because that's just US volume. London's closed, and there's just US in there. Okay? Both of these are moving in the direction I thought they would. So let's just see that break of that 238, 437. There's only about 30 pips there back to the top. Okay, so I would breaking this 238 and holding the other side, I would be probably okay with, except that there isn't a ton of reward here. So let's just see what it's going to do with this 238 and if it can get back above it and push up. And if the 238 holds, it's back down. It might actually. I think this is going to push back up. It's got some stuff it's got to shake out, but I'll leave this for now. We'll go look at gold because it's on a tear here. So anybody here knows we just talked about, looking at the one. Okay. I usually use the one for we're going to go over structure this week as well. So risk reward, not structure. We're going to go over risk reward here on Thursday, which I'll show you how we find our risk reward. Okay. I'm going to do that on Thursday. But yeah, I use the 1 minute. 1 minute is usually where I find my TP, unless I'm using a lower lot size and holding a little bit longer term, which I don't do that often. I'm still just looking for my scalps, And we are up, up, up. The magic arrow had a little bit of a rough time yesterday, but eventually it did what it was supposed to. Yep. Okay, so this had some heavy consolidation, even on the 30. Up, down, and then straight up here. Is that another all-time high? Yeah, we're going to see a nice signal on all-time highs right there. And we're in a beautiful pullback on the 30. Right. Okay. So our trends look at up, 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 above, above, above. We go over to the 5. Yeah, I would say. Right, comes out of the space, right into London, breaks at 238, and away we go. Nice little 3,000 pip move in gold. Lots of pips to be had there. Okay. Gold starting to be careful with jumping into any of these pullbacks on NAS or US 30 because the DXY is pushing back, which we'll take a quick look at. Which this means this is going to come down a bit more. See if it breaks at 50. Comes back into some space here. Catch a little bit more volume. And then start to push its way up. We'll see if maybe the 50 might even want to hold. It might not even come below it. But careful on both these other charts because the DXY is pushing back. All right, so this was our little news we just had, drop straight down, and is now pushing back up, which is going to put some more downward pressure on US 30 and NAS. And it did break that 238. And same with gold. So watch these resets we have, okay? Watch these things resetting because the XY is pushing back. And that is why. All right? That's why we wait for the break of this space, because this was actually just a little grab for volume and heading back down. Okay, so I still think the break of this 238 back up on trend is nice, but we'll see, right? Because if you're looking at this, what has happened on the 1 minute for structure? We're talking about structure, we're talking about trend. And of course, our long-term trend is still up, but what is the structure telling us on the 1 minute? What's it telling us? Put it in the chat. What is it creating? After it got to that 238 and held there, and held some volume, what's the structure telling us? Exactly. So if the structure is telling us down, job wing. If the structure is telling us down, creating lower lows, starting to switch. So that's something for me. It's like, okay, now I really want to take this up because that's a long-term trend. And I really want to take this up, but the structure is starting to shift down. So for me, I got to be really patient. And yes, I still think up is where it wants to go because my 15 minutes telling me that. But I need to see this thing stop this downward structure. So the first thing I need to do is I need to see it change the character to up, even on the 1 minute, right? And that's going to be breaking this 238 and then breaking this level. That's that change of character I would need. And right now, it's creating lower lows and hitting downwards. So we need to see this thing get back above this space. And then if you look at this on the 5, right? Look at the structure. If you were not to look at that and potential, that's true, like, right? You see this, let's try to ignore that up structure over there, right? This came up here once, twice, double top. Came back down here to the 50, created a lower high, another lower high, broke some structure, came back up here, grabbed volume, hit that 238, created another lower high, and is now broken below. Okay, so, I mean, this thing can easily head back up because the news is just kind of shaking itself out and we have open coming. You mean stop, consolidate for a bit, and start breaking up. Yeah, I want to see it come back. Well, this is that consolidation area right here, right? You can see support, resistance, support, resistance, support, resistance. Oh, I didn't mean to press that arrow. Okay. And now in order to see this, I want to see it get through this level first. Love to see it break above it and then pull back to it and create another higher low to push up. But there's getting the 5 minute looks like it's about to switch here as well. And it's back below the 238 on the 5. So I think we need to see this thing. This thing needs to get back above this 238 and hold this level. And then we go up with it. Okay? All right. Well, a lot of information in there today about structure. And I would say spend some time just pulling up some charts and seeing how the structure and how that plays into the trend. There's a weird place for a red star right there. If I found a good place, you're fine now, Carly. Get this thing, but this is going counter, right? This is moving counter trend right now. So this thing needs to get back above and start to head up. Okay. So it does look like it wants to continue down with this structure. So I'm going to have to see it hold and break back above. And the DXY is pushing back. So this thing's going to continue down a little bit. Right? DXY push right back to the top, little pullback. We'll see if it has the strength to break above here. And this chart, the US 30 has real strength in it. hasn't really had, and we'll talk a little bit about before we go here about the macro, hasn't really had a reset. I mean, yes, a little bit. We go look at the dailies, we'll show it, but look at this DXY, right? It's since the 7th of March, it's essentially been on an uptrend, right? That's okay. If the more patient you are, the better. That means you're actually becoming a trader. You're waiting for your setups and you're managing your risk. That's exactly how you should do it, right? This thing hasn't been in a daily uptrend since Feb. Came all the way back up to this space. I do think you're probably going to see this get back above the break. And the one thing to notice is that the DXY has been pushing up and up, but US 30, while it has had a couple days that have started to come down, it's been pushing up too. So there's a lot of strength in the US 30. We see that DXY start to turn a bit. This thing's going to go up and bang out one of those, another all-time high here. Still lots of strength in US 30. Okay? Normally I wouldn't be, I'd probably be scalping away from this 238 a little bit and not so buy bias, but this is just such a long uptrend on the daily that I think you're going to have a nice break above this, and we'll just see if this thing can hold. And as you can see, if this creates what? This holds here, this could create a little higher low, then push into these EMAs, create another little higher low, and then start to shift in structure. I'd like to see that little shift in structure first, and then the break back above. You'll feel a little better about it, but I don't know if we're going to get that. Or open, it'll come and it'll just shoot up 300 pips at open and then come back down. And with news at 8 o'clock as well. Okay? All right, guys. That is our call today. Thank you so much. Plots in there about structure, so go out and practice, go out and show it, see it in real time. Be like, okay, here's what my structure looks like. Put my arrow on it. Be like, okay, when it taps this, pretty good chance it wants to go back down. And as you can see, this is another way to use these support and resistance levels, right? Look at the structure continue downwards. See this resistance level? This thing literally comes up, wicks just below it, down it goes. So remember, in these little support and resistance levels, there's usually a little bit of volume hanging out. Okay? All right. Everybody have a wonderful day, and tomorrow we're going over the stars. So, the 5 just shifted. Got it. You can see the 5 just shifted down. Okay? And lots of things coming here this week too. I'm going to fix this clock so that it's automatic. And then we're also going to have some alert channels hopefully set up here by the end of the week. So, where you can just attach to the channel and get alerts from the 1 and the 5 on US 30, or you can get it from NAS, or you can get it from gold. So, just constantly getting better over here. Okay? So everybody have a wonderful day. And we'll see you tomorrow at 11 MST. Peace.